Social media is a very hyperbolic, reactionary place, especially when we're talking about the social media platform X. And although I don't have a presence on there anymore, I do have a sneaky little burner account where I like to look at aggregated news sources for football. I try and tend to stay away from, political stuff. I work in covering football. I like to follow football stuff. And of course, a very emotional time after the FA Cup final loss for Man City fans. But something I've noticed throughout this season, in what has been a turbulent season, certainly for them, of course, going trophyless for only the second time under Guardiola, and the first time was his first season many, many years ago. A lot of questions being asked, of course. They do have the super Nordic Viking baby eater up front, Erling Haaland. Of course, Kevin De Bruyne's perhaps powers are waning. Still a good player. They've got the last season's player of the season in Phil Foden, who's been on the bench. They've got good players, young players, Rico Lewis, James McAtee, O'Reilly. They've got really expensive new players, Savinho, Doku. Heck, they've even got a £100 million talent in Jack Grealish. And say what you want. Is he not that old? He's 30 years old now. Let me just quickly check this out with Jack Grealish. Look, he's 29. He's not even 30. And look, think what you want about Jack Grealish at Man City. He's an incredible talent. Like, a lot of neutral football fans mourned Aston Villa Jack Grealish because he was such an incredible, mercurial, awesome talent. There's a lot of talent in the Man City squad. They got good defenders. They've got an amazing goalkeeper. Of course, Ortega played in the final. But there's loads of good players. And I saw a lot of Man City fans throughout the season question Guardiola, some even turning on him, and more than ever, I know we're through the looking glass now when Man City fans want a new football manager. There is I think as crazy as that may seem, I think what's not as crazy is he should have left in the summer. Now, he would have had his own reasons not to. Maybe he didn't want to leave Man City as not titled. He wants to do a Fergie, ride off into the sunset and win them the title one last time. Well, he did win the title, do you know what I mean? But he won't leave now because he wants to sort of do a Fergie. I can't imagine he'll leave Man City in a difficult place, is what I'm getting to. But I feel like maybe he wants to rebuild, revitalise, and in a way, Ferguson, didn't want to leave not being title challengers. There's this idea that he doesn't want to leave while all this stuff off the pitch is going on. Like, he doesn't want to feel like he's abandoning them in a time of turbulence, which I guess you could also equate to Ferguson, but from a more sporting perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've been knocked off our perch. I'll put us back on before I leave. I don't want to dip now just before the court hearing and the results of this. You could say there's parallels there. But I reckon he should have gone because Man City title winners, and it just seemed the right time to go, didn't it? There was talks about England trying to get him as manager and stuff, but there's loads and loads of stuff that's been spoken about Pep since. Man City fans aren't happy. They are, he's always been prone to a last minute brain fart every now and again where he changes something that's working and then it doesn't work. Of course, my mob benefited and capitalised off this in the 2021 Champions League final when he didn't play a holding midfielder and changed stuff in the final against Tuchel, and we won deservedly, XG and defensive. But this season's been different. Like, there's been again, I really must stress, guys, I don't want to use social media as a barometer of true fan opinion. It's just whoever shouts loudest on social media, and the people who shout loudest get the the biggest platform, and then it's like an echo chamber of just nonsense. But it's all that's available to me, because here's the joke, here's the quip: I genuinely don't know any Man City fans. I know, I don't mean to. I'm hand on heart. None of my friends are Man City fans. I'm from the south of England, so all my friends are, Arsenal, United, and some Chelsea. And so, a few Spurs out there. There's no Man City fans here. So like I don't talk to Man City fans. I see it on social media. That's my only availability. By the way, guys, welcome back to Football Yannick. How's it going? Just a quick reminder. if you enjoy my commentary on football, there's daily content here, so please do like this video and subscribe if you want to subscribe. Subscribe if you're new, because yeah, really great momentum on the channel recently, and I just want to say I'm very, very thankful for that. Of course, I react to all football stories that don't involve Chelsea, but I'm very, very thankful, so thank you for liking and subscribing. Yeah, so I don't have access to Man City fans except on social media, and again, you know, I follow a few big accounts. There's the YouTuber Stephen McNeary. The guy has a steamed company. He seems like a level-headed guy, but also, and you know, understandably, eternally thankful to Pep Guardiola for what he's given to Manchester City in terms of unprecedented success, you know, in the last few years. But I mean, even I've seen him question, you know, Guardiola at times, and there's been a lot of that this season. Like, why are we doing this? Why hasn't he been turning to these kids like James McAtee and stuff? And I do wonder, like, I heard on a football podcast, I listened to like 7 football podcasts, so I get all jumbled, but someone posing the question of, and this is going to sound very like Mourinho, but like almost in an opposite way. Not an opposite way, it's a different way. Is football passing Guardiola by? Which sounds a mental question. Like, no, he is the idealist, the innovator, the mad genius Guardiola. And of course, like, Mourinho was seen as maybe like his football passing him by, like he's got old methods, and I don't want to, you know, paint Mourinho as like a Galactico Tony Pulis, but there was an element of that. And of course, Mourinho, you know, he was never really the same ever since Real Madrid, even though he knocked Guardiola off his perch in Spain and broke records for a title win with Real Madrid, Mourinho, and obviously came back to Chelsea, won the league. And he even won a few trophies with a bad Man United. Got Spurs to a final, but wasn't allowed to coach it. And then had like a wonderful story with Roma, you know. So, you know, he still was a good coach in the headlines, but he was never the same. By the way, on Mourinho, on a fleeting tangent, hearing people like, it's on BBC, people like James Horncastle and Jonathan Wilson speak about Mourinho, his backstory, and how he's the fallen angel of Barcelona, and that's what created the Dark Lord, because he wanted the Barcelona job. Obviously, he's older than Pep. Pep had only like coached like the youth team or the reserves, and you know, and Mourinho had proper management experience, and of course he used to work at Barcelona himself, Mourinho. And when they turned to Guardiola instead of Mourinho, because of Guardiola's, you know, Catalan connections, his Johan Cruyff total football idealism, and like tiki-taka Barcelona, that they turned to him. He was like so crestfallen, Mourinho, that they chose him over Mourinho. And then he became this like anti-hero, and that's how he became the fallen angel of Barcelona. Mourinho, like, right, well, you're going to play like this, I'm going to play anti-football. And, you know, you want to play like this, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to win by doing the opposite out of sheer defiance. And boy, howdy, he did it, Mourinho. And I realize this is a side story, but I just love that. I love those stories in football. And that's why Mourinho will forever be the most box office manager in the history of the game. You know, you can talk about Guardiola's successes, you can talk about, you know, Ancelotti's successes, winning in all 5 leagues and loads of Champions Leagues, but Mourinho is the super villain. He's right there behind me fighting Wenger. How apt. Anyway, so Mourinho said like maybe football passed him by. He tried to play old. Maybe it's not just the old school way of playing, but how he'd coach players. Mourinho, he'd like ignore John Terry for days and not speak to him, and it would get inside JT's head, and he was just desperate to get the gaffer's attention again. And you know, you made Mo Salah cry, which probably wasn't the nicest thing. Old school way of management, and of course we've become more arm around the shoulder. But then there's this idea that football left Mourinho behind, but maybe it's happening to Pep in a different way. And I realise I've just really gone around the houses to return to this point here, but it was posed like how low blocks aren't the same as they used to be. They're much more intelligent, they're much more tactically sophisticated. It's not just stick loads of big boys in the box and header away and kick the F out of the opposition. It's like, you know, there's pressing and counter-pressing triggers. There's when he's there, you go into this zone. When he's there, you go into that zone. You pick up him, and like defense is becoming sophisticated again. And yeah, like Man City oftentimes this season looked like, again, I always call it the dark side of Sarri ball. Now, of course, Maurizio Sarri managed my club, Chelsea. He did well. He finished top 3 and won the Europa League. Great win against Arsenal in the final. But Chelsea fans, and I was going to a lot of games back then, really didn't like the football. There was this chant, F Sarri ball, even at Wembley, queuing to get in. But it was this and incidentally, Sarri went for dinner with Arrigo Sacchi and Guardiola. They all talked about their idyllic football together. But at least Pep cracked it, Pep made it work in the Premier League. Although, again, fleeting tangent, Maurizio Sarri has been quoted in the last couple of years, the biggest regret of his career is leaving Chelsea. Of course, he got the Juventus job offered, and at the time it was Juventus were the guys. They were the PSG of Italy, as it were, and he just took it. And he, to his credit, he won the title there, but sort of fizzled a little bit. And he older gaffer himself, but yeah, he said he because Marina Granovskaya championed him. Abramovich didn't necessarily want him. And he said, yeah, you should have stayed, because he didn't get sacked. And there's a lot of Chelsea fans on social media that think he was like cruelly dismissed. He wasn't. He went off to Italy to manage Juve. He wanted to. So he didn't get any compensation either as well. Chelsea were like actually asked Juventus for some money. Anyway, I digress. His football was like a little bit like really but often benign, and we've seen a lot of that from Man City this season. Very frustrated Man City fans online. I saw pictures posted of Prime, and it sounds silly referencing him now, but he was amazing. Prime Raheem Sterling. There was this points for Man City. Sterling's got over 100 goals for Man City. Sterling, and he's a winger. Sterling and Sane when they were playing for Man City, winning Premier Leagues, and it was very, very different to now, where they've got Savinho. I know he's a talented player, but he's so ineffective. And Doku on the eye looks amazing. Like really, he does like 1,000 dribbles per game, completed takes-ons, and is quick, but there's just no numbers there. There's no numbers, and it makes you think: is Guardiola's football like? I don't want to say it, but I might say, is it being figured out? Will they ever be the same again? They're clearly very, very good, but will they be this team that like has this formulaic Rubik's Cube way of just having its foot stuck on the Premier League's neck? I don't think that's coming back. There was always this talk that there is, speaking of a Rubik's Cube, there was a particular move in Pep's Man City football that in a certain amount of passes, it would always reset and put you in a good position again. Like there was literally this mathematical way that wasn't like that they'd have to do, or it was automated to reset, and they'd be in a goal scoring chance in like theoretically 15 passes or something crazy like that. Yeah, and of course, so there's that. There's the Pep football. Is he done now? He's obviously older. He's stressed. There's been a lot of spotlight on the club for a multitude of reasons. His talisman superstar KDB is leaving. You got Kevin De Bruyne being interviewed after game saying, I haven't decided on the club yet. And they said, well, would you stay in England? He said, yeah, maybe. Because obviously he's thinking of his family. All his children have been born in England. They're like, native to England in terms of growing up here. And I don't think he necessarily wants to move his whole family. So if he gets an opportunity to stay in the Prem, I think he might do it, which is obviously tricky optics. And then there's a big talking point of Erling Haaland, which sounds mental. But the last 2 games, Man City, they lost to Crystal Palace in the final, and they drew a blank to Southampton, the worst team in the Premier League, that were joined the worst team of all time in the Premier League era, until they got that point against Man City, which elevated them out of the history books. And they were on a winning run before that. They were on an amazing run. What's the only difference? Well, Haaland was brought back into the side. Now, I don't want to, 1 + 1 = 3 here, but that is worth talking about. Of course, they're obligated to play Erling Haaland. He earns £500,000 a week. That is £500,000 every week they pay him. And they've signed him up to a decade-long contract. My mob, Chelsea, they give long contracts, but they give them 80k a week, not £500,000 a week. They say if you can earn more if you do the incentive. They didn't give Haaland an incentive-based contract like they gave Cole Palmer. And they signed Cole Palmer up. They paid him 80k a week. They've recently given him a pay rise because he was amazing to 120k a week, which is still a quarter of what Haaland has. So they're just giving a flat rate. So they've got this financial obligation to pay this guy who scores goals. But if they're playing against these low blocks and you need more of a false nine to move between the lines and break down opposition, are they going to be better without Haaland? And then what do they do with this guy? He's completely priced out of a move. He's basically nailed his colours to the mast. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be City for life. My dad played here. I like it. I'm good here. Guardiola. They're always going to spend money. Yada, yada, yada. Because no one's buying Erling Haaland to pay him 500k a week. No one. Not Real Madrid, not anyone. No one's doing that. And then they might come to a very, very difficult situation, Man City, say next season, where they play some more games without him, like they've done recently, go on a winning run, bring him back in, and then they struggle to break down low blocks. And this goes down to, can Guardiola break down low blocks? Because, and then you got Ruben Dias and people going, like whinging about it, which blows my mind still. It still blows my mind. It's like Rodri, was it Rodri against Scotland? Ruben Dias, Klopp used to do it against teams like when they defended deep. To me, it's just such a petulant, childish response. How dare that team with much less resources than us don't just let us score? That's literally what they're saying. How the audacity to just not let us score goals. Like, I understand everyone's emotional after a loss, and these guys are winners, so they want to whinge about something. But I feel like it's just so funny, where when Ruben Dias comes out after not being able to score against Southampton, a team that at the time were historically the worst ever Premier League team for conceding goals, for defending, for keeping a clean sheet, for the most part, having a go at them for that is just so funny to me. When of course it's their own ineptitude, like inability to score a goal. Is it on Pep? Is it on the system with Haaland? I realise this is a really long video and I've completely done a lot of rambling, but I wanted to talk about it. And whoever made it to the end, thank you. I guess you maybe enjoyed listening to me talk about football. And if you did, and you're yet to subscribe, why not subscribe? Thank you for that. Thank you for liking and subscribing. This is a great platform for me just to talk footy, and if you like it, I'm a huge bonus. And I hope to see you back here soon. Peace.